Welcome to Healing Powers TV. I'm your host, Laura Powers, and I'm pleased today to have Dr. Jeffrey Parham here with us. He does network chiropractor or spinal care.
Network spinal analysis.
Network spinal analysis, thank you. So I've heard a lot about this recently as opposed to traditional, going to a traditional chiropractor, and you told me a story when we were first talking about how you got into this, which I thought was really interesting. So maybe you could just start out with that.
Sure, I'd be happy to share that with you. Well, I had been doing traditional chiropractic for a number of years, maybe 16 or so, and one morning when I woke up, I prayed for a change in my life, and that came about pretty quickly. That afternoon I was in a car accident. So I was hit pretty hard, and sure enough, that changed my life. I went for a year of traditional chiropractic and physical therapy and was being followed by a surgeon. A year post-accident, I wasn't able to hold anything in my left hand. So the surgeon I'd been seeing wanted to do surgery, and as you can imagine, I wasn't real excited about doing that. So I was living in Hawaii at the time, so I went down to the beach, and I happened to meet another chiropractor that was doing network spinal analysis. Out of all the people I could have met that day, that was kind of interesting how that happened. And so I'd heard of network. I knew it was really a very gentle technique. And so when I told this chiropractor that surgery had been recommended, he said, "I can help you." And I was thinking, yeah, right, this network stuff, it can't do anything. It's just, you know, I'm kind of old school, and I thought you had to really do an adjustment to have something happen. So, see you later, went home. 2 days later, I ran into him again. We had that same conversation, and I had the same thoughts. Well, yeah, thanks a lot, to see you later. Went home, 2 days later, ran into him again. That went on for a month, and after a month, I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, I'm getting a message.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't need to be hit by a car to get that thing in my head. So I went in to see him thinking, well, you know, I'm not sure what to expect. I don't think this will really work. But in that first adjustment, or actually we called them a network entrainment, during that first entrainment, I could feel energy start to move in my body. I could feel my body start to unwind way past an automobile accident. And after 3 visits, I decided, well, I'm going to retrain into network care. And so about 2 years later, I had a level 3 certification in network spinal analysis, and I've been practicing that technique for 10 years now.
Wow. Well, yeah, I always find that interesting when someone goes into a certain modality as a patient first, and then they love it so much that they end up doing it.
Yeah, that's I talk to a lot of healers that get into their work that way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice to have that confirming experience that changes your life, and you want to go out and help other people with that modality. Right.
So, since you're in a unique situation of having practiced both kinds, what can you talk about what the difference is between being a more traditional chiropractor and then the network care?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And that's kind of a subject that can go on for a while.
Okay.
I'll give you the shorter version.
Okay.
Of course, I can get kind of long-winded sometimes. But, well, I think that the main difference, there's a couple things. In network care, we work in a reorganizational healing model. And really what our focus is helping the nervous system, one, start to move from a place of defense or fight or flight back to a place of safety. So, and it's a very innocent process that occurs that moves our body into fight or flight, into defense. So I'll kind of go back to the beginning. Okay. And literally, because when we have a egg and we have a sperm and they unite, and then cells start to divide in the womb. And one of the first things that forms is the kind of a, if you could think of a taco shell, kind of forms.
Okay.
And then their cells are inside this taco shell, if you will, or your pita bread that's folded, and the cells start to divide. And they start to form the notochord, which is the primitive spinal cord.
Oh, okay.
So that's the first part that starts to form. And there's little buds that come off of those cells. And there's an intelligence within those cells. And those little buds come off of this cord that's forming, and the buds start to develop to our organs. So it's interesting that there's enough intelligence in that notochord, that primitive spinal cord, that's basically running the show at that point. And there's enough intelligence that the body will form, let's say the mom is missing a kidney. Well, the newborn, the new baby that's developing, the fetus is developing, will go ahead and develop a kidney as well. And the liver and the lungs. So all this information is happening. That's how important the spinal cord is.
Okay.
And that's the development, the basis of our nervous system, which develops and basically controls function of every part of our body, every cell, every tissue, every organ. And it's also how we experience the world through our, as we say in the West here, 5 senses, but if you look at some more of the Eastern philosophies, we'll bring in the 6th sense, which would be more about our mind.
Okay.
So, and that there's another way that our nervous system, I don't know even how to explain that other than there's a certain knowing or a sensing that goes on with the nervous system. That's how we can feel other people, have our intuition, and we're sensing, we're experiencing the world through our eyes and our ears and taste and smell and touch and feel and thought. And so all this is happening all the time. And when at a very young age, very tender age, I mean when we're still in the womb, we're starting to sense outside of our body. And depending on our environment, our nervous system starts to decide at some point, hey, it's not really safe.
Oh, okay.
It's not really safe to be here.
Wow, so this is fascinating because it can happen before you're even born. It never even occurred to me that you could be developing patterns.
You're developing these patterns before you're born, and that goes on until an early age. Some specialists say 3, 4, 5. By 7, pretty much these patterns, the way we learn to defend ourselves against real or perceived threats, have been basically set up in our nervous system. And we could call that the defended self.
Okay.
Some people call it the false self or the defended self.
Okay.
And or the false ego, we've heard it.
Okay.
But basically what's happening, if you look at a cat or a dog, they kind of arch their back when they're ready to fight. Or they're upset or they're afraid, kind of arching their back and ready to. And that's what starts to happen with us humans too. As the nervous system becomes overwhelmed, we develop these unconscious patterns of behavior. We start to kind of get this arching in the middle back. You might see that, or maybe the ears move out in front of the shoulders. But the end result is the nervous system is in a certain degree of fight or flight. Okay. Now, fight or flight is a great survival strategy.
Yeah.
So if we're walking down baseline and the saber-toothed tiger shows up, we're either going to fight or we're going to run away. Probably most of us are going to run away. And then the nervous system, our blood goes from our organs out into the muscles, the periphery, so we can fight or run. There's different chemicals produced. We have that adrenaline rush going. We actually start to process in the lower brain centers.
Okay.
So because that's faster than processing up in the front lobe.
Oh, okay. So if you're trying to run away from something dangerous, that's desirable.
That's desirable. Of course, you want to make fast reaction. We don't want to go, well, I wonder if the saber-toothed tiger's having a bad day. And we want to react and be able to get away. Right. And if you've ever noticed, when you're under a lot of stress, we don't think as clearly.
Oh, yes.
See, and that's what's happening. The nervous system is reacting in that fight or flight way. We're not as focused, maybe we're forgetful, we feel overwhelmed. And and that's because of the stress we're experiencing. And that can be physical, chemical, emotional, mental stressors.
Okay, and that's really problematic if, let's say you're stressed at work and you're just in that mode. most of the time, right?
Sure. It can be very reactionary. The nervous system is definitely under tension. Those patterns have started setting up from a very early age, just like we discussed. The spinal cord itself actually is under tension. So if you were to, I've got some great photographs. I didn't bring those with me. It would have been nice if I had, but it shows how the spinal cord goes under tension and actually starts to get thin, thins out from this when we're in this kind of a defensive posture, we'll call it.
Okay.
So, because only a 6% stretch of the nervous system decreases nerve flow by 60%.
Wow.
And that was research done here in Colorado a number of years back. So, to put that in perspective, a 6%, if you were to take a dime and place it on, just let it rest on a nerve, that's about a 6% stretch of the nervous system.
Wow, it's just a dime.
Just a dime. So with our nervous systems under tension like that, not only are we running these old unconscious patterns, but there's a disruption of the nerve flow to different parts of the body.
Yeah.
Now, how does that show up in our body? Because that's really, stress is really stuck energy in the body, stored stuck energy. And that shows up in our body as tension. And it's that tension patterns that lock into our nervous system based on what we've experienced in the past that start to distort the spine. You start to pull the vertebrae out of place. And when I did traditional chiropractic, I would find those vertebrae out of place, and I would adjust people, and they would do better, and then I would see the same vertebrae on the same person coming back out of place.
Right. Yeah, because you haven't dealt with the core reason why it's misaligned.
That's right. So when I got into network care and I started to learn about how the nervous system works and how tension and stress stores in this system, and how when our nervous system becomes overwhelmed, that it can no longer release that stress and tension. And I learned that through a very gentle touch at the ends of the spinal column, up in the neck area, down in the sacrum, and the tailbone, in areas that the nervous system is, or the body's in safety. So we call those spinal gateways. And those are areas where the body's it's not in defense, it's not in spasm, it's not tight, but it's an opening into the nervous system. And when we make a gentle contact into that gateway, then that anchors safety into the nervous system. The nervous system, oh, that's what safety is like.
Okay.
And the nervous system can go to this place of being stretched, if you will, like an over-tightened guitar string, back to this place of relaxation, back to this place of safety. And that starts that release of that bound up tension, which is stuck energy or bound up energy, and starts that process of releasing that energy into the spinal gateways where we're making the contacts.
Okay, so it sounds like what you're doing is trying to sort of retrain the body to be relaxed so that you don't create the stress which essentially causes the misalignment. Is that?
Well, the tension patterns, that's
the
right.
The tension patterns, okay. Unless there's an injury, of course.
Well, that's another stressor to the body.
That's true. It is a stress, yeah.
It is it's a physical, and there can be an emotional component, and there can be a chemical component to that. As we've got inflammation, or we could take a medication to for pain, or for other reasons, and that can actually act as a chemical stress or irritant to the nervous system as well.
Okay.
So if you think about these tension patterns, the stress that's built up in the nervous system as bound up energy is kind of like having a bank account with $1 million without a password, without a debit card, without a checkbook.
Yeah.
So it's just hanging out there, and we can't use it. So in network care, we work with the nervous system in such a gentle way that it's kind of like giving the password to that bound up, stuck energy.
Yeah.
And that energy will actually start to move through the spine in a wave that you can see. Actually, it's been that wave, the somatopsychic wave we call that, or the body-mind wave, has been studied at the University of Southern California, Department of Mathematics. And out of that research, it was shown that as a person progresses through network care, the nervous system develops new strategies, and that way becomes more mathematically organized.
Okay.
Which leads us to believe that the nervous system is reorganized into a higher level of function. And that's really what we get into in network care. It's in the reorganizational healing model of helping the body learn new strategies to experience more depth and range of the human experience. Learning new strategies so when we encounter stress that it doesn't stuff back in the body but it cycles through. Learning new self-regulating strategies, automatic self-regulating strategies to regulate stress and tension in the body so it doesn't build back up in the nervous system, so that the nerve flow is full again, and that restores health and wellness. But we want to move a person past the point of coming in with a pain, having their pain removed or reduced, and that person going back to the same life they had right before they had that symptom.
Yeah. And then causing it to happen again and then come right back.
Well, causing it to happen again, or a repeat type scenario. How about expanding past that?
Yeah.
How about as the nervous system relaxes, we can start to process in the frontal lobe again. And we can start to, that's where we can experience different levels of consciousness and awareness.
Right.
And that's really, and as we develop that awareness in the body, and as our spines can move to this place of openness and flexibility and movement and no longer be stuck in the past, reacting to what happened to us at 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Yeah, much better.
So we have more resourcefulness. We have more choice in life.
Yeah, this has come up on a couple of other interviews where we, as people, either through our mental outlook or our physiological reactions, are basing how we react now on the past, and it's really lost energy.
Well, yeah, because to hold those unconscious patterns binds up a lot of our energy. It takes a lot of energy to hold those patterns in place, and a distortion. And we work a lot with the posture because we can see different postures related to different, what we call phases, or locked up energy patterns. And they're very predictable emotions, predictable levels of consciousness. And because we're in fight or flight, often we are can be stuck in the lower mental realm, where that level of consciousness or a question from that realm might be, why does this always happen to me? What's wrong with me? Or who did what to me when?
Right.
And in the lower mental realm, it tends to freeze events in time and space and play them over and over again.
Okay.
So we're basically, with that story and playing that over and over, we're experiencing that event over and over and over again. Our body's still reacting to that. Our nervous system's still reacting to that.
Yeah. Well, I really like this idea that you can kind of restart the system and start from a healthier mental and physical place.
Well, that's a good point. And one of the things I like about network care is, of course, I didn't have to have surgery. It was a big
that's huge, right?
Huge thing for me, and was really motivated me to continue this work. But it is like a rebooting of the system. It is like if you thought of the nervous system as our software, it's like an upgrade to the software. So when's the last time you upgraded your nervous system to version 2.0? But it's also at the same time like upgrading your hardware, which is your spine.
Yeah.
So the spine starts to change in our position, and maybe our posture was like this, and then we start to come into it, or posture was like this, and we start to come into a more awakened posture as that tension leaves and the energy is used and recycled, so to speak, in network care. Is we can use that which has hurt us, that is still stored in our nervous system, we can use that energy for healing and transformation.
I really like this because I think it's an important point in our society that sometimes we work a lot on our mental and spiritual development, but we forget that you have to bring your body into line with that you can't truly reach that high level in spiritual and mental development if you're not physically there as well. And that's what I hear you saying, is that they're very much connected.
Well, yes, and from my perspective, the structure and the perception and behavior of the nervous system, that makes up what we call the triad of change in network care, is it really, I feel, is a missing link in transformation. Because we can do a lot with our mind. We can have affirmations, we can have different thoughts, we can have different intentions, but unless we have the nervous system and our structure and perception and behavior of spine and nervous system on board, it's hard to really move and sustain levels of opening.
Is there anything else that you'd like to mention for our audience about the kind of work that you do before we finish up for today?
Network care is really worth a try. And there's a lot of great practitioners in Denver, there's a lot in Boulder, and there's some really talented, caring practitioners here in Colorado. We're really fortunate to have that here for everyone to partake in.
Great, well thank you. And if people want to find out more about what you do or get in contact with you, how would they do that?
Well, you can go to my website for one, and that's www.wellnessrhythms, one word, wellnessrhythms.com. And you can find out more information about network spinal analysis. And while you're there, you can even sign up and receive a free copy of my latest ebook, 52 Health and Lifestyle Tips.
Great. Well, thank you for being on the show, Dr. Parham. It was great to have you. I think it's a lot of helpful information. And I'll go ahead and post all this information on my website as well, which is www.healingpowers.net.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for watching.